Alright, here's the game I've been working on with assembly language programming on the Apple II. It's called Castle Dain. It's kind of a RPG light. It's kind of just a casual little RPG that's not too complicated. I kind of think of games that, I like to play. I loved RPGs. I went through the Wizardry series, spent hours and hours with Wizardry 4. I played Ultima, Bard's Tale, so I love the RPGs, but sometimes I just wanted to sit down and do, a casual kind of game like Dungeon Campaign. Bob Clardy made that game, so this is kind of a pseudo RPG type game, which was a lot of fun. Also, Dungeon, based on the board game on the Apple II, that was kind of fun too. So just want to make a game where you could just sit down if you've got an afternoon or something and you want to play through it. That would be, just something that I kind of program that I would enjoy myself. And so, as you can see, this is version 0.1, so it's not finished by far, and it probably has some minor bugs in it, but I tried to squash as much of those as possible. And so I just wanted to get something out there because I know how I am. I get easily distracted, and if I waited till it was finished, I probably would never get it out there. So I figure try to get some sort of playable demo and see what you guys think about it. And so that's that. You could see that it's joystick required. So if you're doing an emulator, you can use a USB gamepad, but if you have a joystick, I tried it out with the joystick on a real Apple II, and it seems to work fine too. So you just, doesn't really have much sound right now, just some clicks when you move it. So we'll just hit start game. And then here are the three characters right here. Talk a little bit about the castle. Castle is based on a building called Old Main, which is from my alma mater, Eastern Illinois. So that's why I base castle on. The clouds are from, if you were eagle-eyed, you would see that they're from an Apple II game, but in the Apple II game that I kind of borrowed them from, they move, and maybe someday I'll get them to move across the screen, but Conan has the clouds moving across the screen. And then the mountains, I was inspired by the mountains in the beginning graphic for Karateka. So really cool how Jordan Mechner made the mountains there, so I kind of based it on that. And then Castle Dain kind of rhymes with Old Main, and so Castle Dain, actually one of my buddies growing up who I programmed in BASIC with Apple II, I believe he used the name. We kind of worked together with programming and shared disks and things like that, so kind of to pay homage to him, so just I named it Castle Dain just for that. And so the three characters here, you can pick Aristodemus, the knight, Zoriana, which is kind of like the Katniss from Hunger Games with the bow and arrows, and then Cansloopny, my friend that I mentioned about Castle Dain, he had a character, probably doesn't even remember this, but named Cansloopny, which I thought was funny. So thanks goes out to Steve Polyakis, who came up with different names like Castle Dain, Cansloopny, some of the fun things that I wanted to pay homage to them. This is my favorite graphic too, but you can see you got three, and they're all the same. It's just which character you want to use. So we'll go with him. So when you enter the castle, it's kind of plays like adventure in a way, because your dots can move around to different screens, although I did base it more on Dragon Stomper, which was a Atari 2600 game by Starpath that I played a ton. It was one of the first console RPG games. Had a little menu at the bottom and statistics and things like that, so it was a really cool game. So I've just got 4 basic attributes here. We have strength. You could see dexterity, vitality, and max vitality. So strength is your helps with the percentage in a hit and how much damage you're going to do. Dexterity avoids damage or helps you run away. Vitality is your hit points, and your vitality can't go higher than the max. So if I move up, I could touch things in the middle of the screen. This talks about the statue, that kind of the facial features come to life and it speaks to me. So you just, when you see that bouncing arrow, you just hit the button and you can skip past that and you can move around. There's encounters, so you can see a green slime. I have encounters, so you just hit the button. And if I had items, I could go to use item and I could use a potion, which would give me some more vitality back. Scroll is more of an attack, like a fireball. And then we have the amulet, which is protection, and then a key. But since I can't use it, if I just click it, it just goes back. And I could fight or run. So I'll just hit fight, and you can just go through that. Okay, so when you kill the enemy, it tells you if you found anything. So I found an amulet. Earn 3 experience points, and you distribute them right away. And the experience points actually you distribute between your attributes. And so let's say I wanted to get some vitality back. I could add a point there. And I wanted to add to my strength and dexterity, so I could do that. So I can move to the next screen. If I hit the button, I got this menu where I can go back to move, or I can use an item. So if I wanted to use my item now, I could go to amulet. And in the upper right hand corner next to my name, it's got a little green box that says I'm protected temporarily. So I can move here. There's a question mark that gives you more of a description of the room, even though I have words that describe, like I'm in the antiquities room. Out here was the west hallway, but if I tap it, it tells me a little bit more about this room. And so you just kind of have to pay attention to what it says to kind of figure things out later. So here's another creature. Oh, since I used the amulet, it's hidden me from the enemy, so I have an option if I want to advance or leave. Since I'm protected, I'm going to advance, and that will give me a way to fight it. Now, normally if you run, there is like a penalty for running. So normally without an amulet. If you have an amulet, there's no penalty for leaving the battle. So 3 experience points, so we'll just maybe give them all to vitality there. And so here's the guard room. You can see there's a door I can't get through yet. So you just kind of figure things out here. So there's another creature. They can surprise you. There's like maybe 10%, I can't remember, of them surprising you. So I have no items to use, so fire run. So if I run, it's based on my dexterity. My dexterity is kind of low, so I can get black pretty easily, so I want to build that up. Let's see, maybe... Here we go. So if you escape, you're either going to, as a penalty for running, you're going to lose either a point of strength or a point of dexterity. So there's different things like that. Alright, one way you could play this game is with an emulator, and if you have a Windows computer, you can use AppleWin. And so when you open it, this is what it looks like. It's got the menu on the right side here. And to load a game, you would just click this top disk drive and pick the file that you want to load that ends in DSK, and then just open it, and then you would just hit the Apple to load the program, and it would start it. And then if you want to play in full screen, there's a button down here that's a full screen button. Now for the controls, down here, this button with the joystick in it, if you're using a USB gamepad or some type of USB controller, you would just select this PC joystick and it would work. It just uses one button. I should have mentioned, I forgot to mention that in the emulator you can also just switch it to keyboard. It would emulate a joystick as keyboard cursor keys in this case. And so then you would just make sure you put keyboard cursors, and you'd use the cursor keys, the arrow keys to move, and then I believe the Alt key on the keyboard would be the button that you would press to select things. Alright, and if you're going to emulate using a Macintosh, the emulator of choice seems to be Virtual 2. And so in Virtual 2 you've got your menu up top, and some other items here on the side. You could switch the color by hitting color, and then you've got a disk drive right here, and you just drag the file, the DSK file, into the drive, and it'll load up. And then while we're waiting for that, basically if you have a gamepad, a USB gamepad, you can click this button here that says pad, and you can modify it, even if you have like analog sticks and things like that, buttons, so you can calibrate. That's important, and use that. If you do not have a USB gamepad, you want to use the keyboard, then you just go to setup here, and in the setup there's something called built-in connections. You just go to game controller, and then you can use keyboard. You can click activate arrow keys, and then that way you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard. And then the button would be the command key, or as we used to call it, the open apple key. That would be the button that you would use for that. Now, how do you play it if you've got a regular Apple II, like a 2E? I've got a 2C Plus and a 2GS, and I tried it on those, and it works good. I just use this thing called Floppy Emu, which you just put a SD card, like a mini SD card, in your computer. You just throw it on that card, and then you plug this in like it's a regular floppy drive on your Apple II computer, and so then it'll recognize it, it'll think it's a disk, and then you can run it from there. And then once again you have to have, for the Apple II, a joystick. So this is a joystick that I use because I've had this one forever. So you can use a joystick like this, you know, any Apple II joystick. Or if you don't have a joystick, there's some modern solutions out there. I've got this this game port by Byte Boosters, and you can plug in an Atari one-button joystick, and the game, you know, Castle Dain only uses one button, so that would work fine. There's also a port for SNES controller too, if you want to use that instead, but it just plugs, this will plug into your computer, and then you can use that as well. And then how did I figure out how to program in assembly language? These are the two books. My brother got me that a couple Christmases ago. It was on my list of either that or that new Commodore 64 mini thing, and thank goodness he got me the book instead. And so I got that, and then I picked up this. At first I was like, I looked at that and I'm like, I think this is all I'm going to use, because this is kind of gets into more, you know, moving your graphics faster, loading them on the screen faster. I'm not sure if I'm going to need that for an RPG, but I ended up that, yeah, I mean, I definitely needed the graphics to load on there faster, especially when going room to room, things like that. So those two books, and then I was kind of crazy that I would like print out my code when I got, you know, a certain thing to work the way I wanted it to. I would print it out, and then I would put it in a binder, and I would make corrections and add things or cross things out and things like that. So, you know, I printed a lot of paper because I need to kind of see it on paper and work on paper, and then from there go use it in a word processor. I did use Merlin 32. I started out using the regular Merlin on the Apple II, and I'm like, there's got to be, you know, a better way to do this, a modern way. So I definitely got a hold of Merlin 32 by Brutal Deluxe, and that was a lifesaver. So yeah. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about this. If you liked what you saw, you could subscribe, and whenever I get to like a version 0.2 or something like that, I will post that video on here as well. So once again, thanks, and Apple II forever.